everyone! Welcome to the first day of 33 Days to Morning Glory. Day 1. The Passionate Saint of Brittany. Take a look at a map of France. Now notice something about its shape. See how one part sticks way out, almost as if it were running away from the rest of the landmass, ready to dive off into the Celtic Sea? That jutting arm in the northwest of the country is called Brittany, and that's where St. Louis de Montfort grew up. There's something special about Brittany that seems to have had influence on St. Louis, its Celtic roots. Brittany is considered one of the 6 Celtic nations, meaning that the Celtic language and culture still survive. So scratch that part about Brittany being ready to dive into the Celtic Sea. It's already in and swimming. And one part of Celtic culture seems to have seeped deeply into the heart of St. Louis, the high-spiritedness of its warriors. From ancient times, Celtic warriors have struck terror in the hearts of their enemies. If you've ever seen the movie Braveheart, you know what I mean. Think of the fearless figure of Sir William Wallace, played by Mel Gibson, and his crazy crew of Scottish Highlanders who take on an English enemy many times their size. This shows something more of the Celtic fighting spirit, but the real-life version is even more intense. Often wearing nothing but blue battle paint, real Celtic warriors would work themselves into a bloodthirsty frenzy, rush into combat screaming their heads off, and wildly slash, bash, and slice away at their enemies with huge two-handed swords. These fierce fighting men, despite their lack of discipline, armor, and order, were extremely effective in battle because of their unmatched passion and ferocity. Throughout history, nobody has wanted to mess with the crazy Celtic warriors. St. Louis' dad, Jean Vignon, must have been descended from these wild men warriors, for nobody wanted to mess with him either. In fact, he was known for having the most fiery temper in all of Brittany. As one author puts it, he was a volcano frequently erupting. St. Louis, on the other hand, was as gentle as a lamb, right? Wrong. He confessed that his temper was just as bad as his father's. But Louis channeled his fiery passion not to threats and violence, but to laboring for the greater glory of God. Well, except for the time he knocked out a couple of drunks who wouldn't stop heckling him while he preached. We can get a better sense of Louis' remarkable zeal if we reflect on his short but incredibly productive priestly life. When he died in 1716, St. Louis was just 43 years old, having been a priest for only 16 years. Tireless labors to bring souls to Jesus through Mary, especially by his preaching and endless succession of parish missions, brought about his early death. As if these life-sapping labors weren't suffering enough, Louis had to bear vicious persecution from the clergy and Jansenist heretics, even to the point of being physically attacked and poisoned by them. Despite all this, our indomitable warrior kept advancing on the battlefield, continuously preaching his trademark path to Jesus through Mary. In fact, when leaders in the church in France thought they had put an end to his work, Louis walked the 1,000-mile journey to Rome and asked the Pope for his wisdom and counsel. The Pope not only told him to go back to France and continue preaching, but awarded him the title Apostolic Missionary. Obediently and joyfully, our saint returned to France, where he continued to preach, write, and patiently bear his many sufferings out of love for Jesus, Mary, and souls. St. Louis' passion and zeal lit a fire in a young Karol Wojtyła, the future Pope John Paul II. A few years before his death, the Pope was able to realize a lifelong dream and visit de Montfort's tomb. He said on that occasion, "I am happy to begin my pilgrimage in France under the sign of this great figure. You know that I owe much to this saint and to his true devotion to the Blessed Virgin. Now what about us? Do we have a fire in our hearts as we begin this retreat? We should, or at least we should strive for it. Desire and generosity are key ingredients to making a successful retreat. May Mary intercede for us, and may the Holy Spirit fill us with the passion to conscientiously make these days of retreat, despite any fatigue, distractions, or obstacles. And let's remember that what we may have to endure in terms of the discipline of prayer is nothing compared to what St. Louis went through, and he'll be interceding for us. Relying on his intercession and that of the Mother of God, let's resolve right now to dedicate ourselves to this retreat with the intensity and zeal of a Celtic warrior, though without all the face paint and screaming. When I was reflecting on day 1, one of the things that stood out to me was St. Louis' temper. It was a passion, a weakness that he struggled with, but was able to channel it for God's glory. And I was thinking, we can use our strengths, our talents, or things we consider weaknesses for God too. It's just a matter of channeling it the right way, giving it to the Lord. In the second letter of St. Paul to the Corinthians, Jesus says, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." We can give God our weaknesses, offer it to Him, and ask Him to use them, to perfect them, to show His power and strength in our weakness. This doesn't mean it's going to be easy, like I just gave God all my weaknesses and He's going to take them away and I'll be perfect. It doesn't really work like that. But look at St. Louis. He wasn't perfect. He even beat some guys up when they were bothering him. He faced so many difficulties, even having to walk all the way to Rome. But he joyfully went back to France to patiently bear his many sufferings. He joyfully went back to bear sufferings. Sounds kind of contradictory to me, but then I was thinking, joy is a fruit of the Holy Spirit, and Mother Mary is the spouse of the Holy Spirit. Marian Consecration can change our lives and the lives of those around us if we give God permission, if we say yes to His will for us, to the point of joyfully going back to our trials. Because St. Louis said yes, here we are so many years later doing Marian Consecration. But to do this, we need to desire it. We need to desire to grow closer to Jesus through Mary. And if you're struggling with this, if you don't really want to do it, if you're just like, I'm going to do it because other people are doing it, ask God for the genuine desire to grow closer to Him. I had to ask God for the desire too, since I wasn't really prepared to make a reflection or to think about doing Marian Consecration again. So I've been asking Mother Mary to carry me to her Son and hold me there. It can be so hard to do things to grow closer to God, to grow in our faith, but it can be as simple as telling God and being honest with yourself. Like, hey God, I'm struggling to do this. Can you help me? Can you give me a desire for you? And He will help you because He wants you to grow closer to Him, to be able to trust Him so you can rely on Him when it gets difficult to follow. Mother Mary wants you to grow closer to her Son. She is our mother. She is more mother than all mothers. And good mothers want what's best for their children. Ask Mother Mary to help, and remember God's power is made perfect in weakness. Another thing Father Gately mentions is generosity. We need to be generous with ourselves and give ourselves completely. Like I mentioned earlier, it doesn't mean everything is going to be really easy after Marian Consecration. It doesn't mean that all our problems are going to be solved in the way we want. I was kind of hoping it would be the first time I did Marian Consecration, but it still involves a choice, a yes to God and Mother Mary. It involves choosing to give ourselves to God, to trust, even if we can't see the outcome, and when things aren't going the way we wanted to. As I was reflecting, I was trying to think of something that I could share about how Marian Consecration has changed my life in some big dramatic way. But then as I was thinking, I couldn't remember anything. Nothing stood out in my memory of some big dramatic event. But then I was thinking, that's okay. Even if I can't see it, Mother Mary was still present. She was guiding me closer to her Son in little ways. So even if you can't see it or realize it, know Mother Mary is still leading you, and God is still with you. Our obstacles might not immediately fall away after we ask for this desire, but even if they're not removed for us, you can grow so much by experiencing them. Today's prayer. Come, Holy Spirit, living in Mary. Help me to make this retreat with generosity and zeal.